woman named Scarlett lived in Boston. She was a real dreamer, but didn't like to strive to achieve her goals. She was always fired from every job she had for not following the rules and for being hard to deal with because of her stubbornness. Even though she had a bad temper, Scarlett knew exactly when to use her beauty and charm to get what she wanted. Therefore, she always managed to get another job using her magnetic energy. One night, after being fired from her last job, Scarlett met an older man in a bar downtown. His name was Marcus Winston. He looked like he was 70 years old, and he was mesmerized by Scarlett's beauty. She obviously noticed that he was very wealthy, judging by his clothes and Rolex watch, besides the car that he arrived in. She stared at him with her magnetic eyes, calling him without saying a word, and he obviously fell for her tricks, going in her direction. They sat together and spent the rest of the night talking about every subject possible. They really got along, and Marcus also knew how to use his advantages in his favor. He told her to get anything she wanted from the menu and showed that he didn't care about how much he was spending until the end of the evening. When the bar was about to close, he did what he always does when he meets a beautiful woman who he wants to impress. "Would you like to join me on a trip in my private jet?" Marcus asked, already knowing the answer. Scarlett couldn't believe his words. "Marcus, you're crazy," she said maliciously. "Come on, just like to enjoy life at its best. Please, just say yes." "This is crazy. It's been a while since I got along so well with a man, and I just feel like I can trust you. So, yes, let's go on the trip together," Scarlett said, looking straight into his eyes. Marcus couldn't hide his excitement. They said goodbye, and as soon as he got home, he started arranging everything to travel on the weekend. On the day of the trip, Scarlett also had arranged everything to keep following her plan to seduce Marcus, marry him, and never have to work ever again. She only found out where she was going when they landed in Paris, the city of love. It was soon, but Marcus was already fallen in love with that mysterious woman. He couldn't help doing everything she asked for. It was actually a very pleasant trip for both of them. They went to restaurants, museums, bars, and were joking about getting married all the time. They spent almost a month in the city. On the last day, they visited the Eiffel Tower, and Marcus was so in love with Scarlett that he had made the decision to ask her to marry him there. He popped the question, anxious to hear her answer. "Will you marry me and make me the happiest man on earth?" Scarlett pretended to be surprised and answered right away. "Of course I will, Marcus. And you will make me the happiest woman on earth." They got back to Boston, and as soon as they arrived, they started arranging everything for their wedding. They didn't want to waste any more time apart. They finally got married after a month of being engaged and moved to a huge, luxurious mansion, just like Scarlett had dreamed of. Of course, Scarlett had other plans that didn't involve spending the rest of her life with an old man, but it was okay for her. He won't last that long, she thought with herself. After 2 years of being married, Scarlett was still pretending to love Marcus, being a polite, helpful, and present wife. She didn't care and wasn't interested in knowing where all his money came from. She only cared about spending it, especially after Marcus gave her a limitless credit card. One day, Scarlett was in the living room and she heard Marcus yelling at someone over the phone. He was in his office and was really angry. After he finished the call, he stormed out of the house without saying a word to his wife. Scarlett thought his behavior was very strange. He had never acted that desperate before. Although she suspected her husband, she didn't think there was something wrong going on. On that same day, in the middle of the night, Marcus got home extremely drunk. Scarlett was still awake and heard her husband go into the office and slam the door. She heard sounds of glass breaking and what looked like punches on the wall. But she decided not to go check what was happening at that moment. The next morning, Scarlett prepared the breakfast and waited for her husband to leave for work so she could get into the office and try to discover something that explained why he was acting so crazy. He left, and she rushed to the office, opening his laptop. She needed the password to get in. She thought for a while it had to be something related to her because he was obsessed with her. She was right. After a few attempts, she put her name and birthday together and finally had access to his account. Scarlett looked everywhere to see if she could figure something out. She saw that he had gotten an email from a friend saying, "It's all over. We lost everything at the poker game last night. It's all over." Scarlett was intrigued by that email and decided to keep looking. She was paralyzed when she found many other emails of threats and requests involving drugs and politicians. She finally connected the dots and realized her husband worked for a big drug dealer and he was owing him a lot of money. His last chance was this poker game he had apparently lost last night. Scarlett was speechless, trying to understand all of that situation when she heard the police sirens just outside her house. She got desperate. She couldn't do anything to change her fate. She was married to Marcus and used all of that dirty money all the time they were together without questioning. She went to the living room and saw a note on the table that said, "By this time, you probably figured out what happened. You are so smart, aren't you? I had to run away. The time we spent together was amazing, but now it's time for us to trick other people. If you're not arrested, of course. Have a good life, my love." Scarlett couldn't believe that Marcus tricked her like that when she thought she was the one taking advantage of the situation. He knew since the beginning about all her intentions to marry him for money. She was shocked by how naive she was. She heard knocks on the door. It was the police. They broke down the door and handcuffed Scarlett, who, for the first time, got tricked back after many lies she told innocent people. It took a really long time, but she finally met someone just like her and paid for all the mistakes she made throughout her life. If you know any similar stories, write about it in the comments, like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fantastic stories.